In a recent interview with Todd McShay, Saints general manager Mickey Loomis talked about his first job in the NFL. He was in Seattle working for then GM Mike McCormick. And he said the biggest lesson he learned from McCormick was quarterback is the most important position on the team, but the offensive line room is the most important room. Well, currently the biggest need in the Saints offensive line room is interior linemen, especially left guard. In today's film room, we break down Vega Ioane. It's a consensus pick of the best left guard in the draft. And we talk about an interior lineman from Kentucky whose great week at the Shrine Bowl suddenly propelled him from undrafted free agent to day 3 pick. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Olaivavega Ioane, and we'll call him Vega Ioane from this point out. Very interesting left guard prospect because it starts his sophomore year in high school. Prior to that, he had never touched a football, according to Draft Buzz, excuse me. So late bloomers, but bloom he did. 3 4-star recruit in the 2022 recruiting process. Winds up signing with Penn State. Takes a red shirt in 2022 with Penn State. 2023, he kind of worked his way up as a redshirt freshman through the ranks, really catching the coach's eye, and eventually earns 5 starts at left guard. 2024, he's technically the full-time left starter, although he does take about 100 snaps at right guard. And in 24, he really took off, playing very well, locked in at that left guard spot. 2025, he was just an absolute beast. Now, I'm going to start this off with, before we kind of break down some of the numbers, he is drawing, from everything I'm reading, quite a few comps to Gray Zabel. Now, if you remember Gray Zabel last year in 2025, he's an offensive tackle for North Dakota State, shows up at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, basically rolls through all 5 positions all week. He didn't just turn NFL heads, he made them do complete 360s. Buzz picked up, hey, he's a first rounder. He's an 18 to 25 type guy. Seattle takes him in the first round, moves in the left guard, day 1 starter. You know, he's had over 1,000 snaps already with Seattle. First 16 weeks are interesting because he only had 1 week where he was truly dominant. That was week 3 against the Saints, and pretty much everybody on Seattle dominated us that day. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't like he was bad or terrible in any of the other 15 weeks, but he showed a rookie moving to left guard, starting in the NFL type stuff. Looked really, really good at times. Sometimes a little bit of the rookies do rookie things would kick in. Week 17, that all changed because he returned to the week 3 dominance he showed against us, against Carolina. He was better the next week in week 18 against Frisco. And then the playoffs started, and he kicked it into a whole new level. He's been pretty dominant in both playoff games, again against Frisco, and then the NFC Championship game against one of the best defensive lines in football against the Rams. You get that kind of production out of Ioane, man, that's a no-brainer in that mid-first round pick. Problem is, Saints are picking at 8. Now, what makes Ioane so good? Quite a few things, to be honest. So first and foremost, it starts with his pass blocking. This is an insane stat to me, but at left guard, primarily, like we said, in 2024, did have 100 more snaps so at right guard. But as a pass blocker, between those 2 seasons, he had a total of 27 starts. In those 27 games, gave up 0 sacks, only 1 quarterback hit, a combined 20 pressures between the 2 years. And that was mostly in 2024 when it was 16, only 4 in 2025. Needless to say, when you look at the PFF grades on his film, pass block grade 87.0, outstanding. True set, which again is not counting RPOs or wide zone run fakes that you're actually throwing the ball, except the trickeration type stuff. This is, everybody knows the offense is throwing the ball. They're in pass pro, and the defense is pinning the arrows back and coming. He graded out at 90.9. Solidly in the upper end of the 10 percentile. He was one of the best at it. Here's the thing. Universally, when you go look at him on all the draft sites, they talk about how strong he is, and especially how strong his hand grip is. And it's been said more than one place. He gets his hands on your chest plate, you're done. You're blocked. You're not getting off the thing. That strength also translated into his run blocking. Now, his overall grade was 78.6 from PFF, in zone 72.2, gap 73.6. Here's the thing about his run blocking. That strength helps him a lot in power running, gap stop, especially gap style stuff, and inside zone stuff too. It lends to that. It's the wide zone where they're moving laterally on the offensive line before they're getting upfield trying to create space. And to a lesser degree, this goes back to the difference between his pass block grade and his true set is some of those defensive linemen who have a little bit quicker agility, side to side stuff can give him some problems. That's basically the big question on him. Is he going to be able to handle lateral movement? I guess the best way to sum it up, whether he's got to move laterally down the line of scrimmage in a wide zone look, or he's dealing with the NFL is going to be bringing some interior, quicker, agile, try to get around in pass rushers, or even at times when edge guys are going to show up in front of them, either on a twist or they line up there in some type of NASCAR defense like we do with Granderson. So those are the questions that everybody's asking that they want answered, that we're not sure if that's going to translate in the NFL level or if he's going to just have to develop that over the NFL level. And still, people are pegging him in that mid-first round. So my question is, what happens to him if he answers those questions and puts him to bed and people are saying, he can do it all? Where does that put his draft stock at? We're picking at 8. And I'm one of the guys that will stand on the hill and say, look, you don't even consider a guard in the top 10 unless he's Quentin Nelson. I'm comfortable giving him a floor of Gray Zabel. I am not comfortable enough to give anybody the title of Quentin Nelson. I don't really know. But Mickey Loomis and the Saints organization, I do believe, are fully committed to rebuilding both lines. And I think they're fully committed right now while they think they have the quarterback in place. Going back to what Mickey said, the most important room is that offensive line room, and our issues are on the interior. I really don't know how this plays out in the draft, but I think and the reason why I'm bringing this up, that he may not be a possibility of a draft pick for us, but I think collectively, this is something we got to keep our eye on, especially if we're unable to sign a left guard in free agency, which we'll cover in the third segment. But before we get there, let's go ahead and talk about a very interesting player in Jager Burton, center/guard from the University of Kentucky. So Jager Burton's a very interesting case. And when we talked about, hey, the Saints are looking for the right guys, he may be someone who falls into that category for them. So Jager Burton, 2021 was a blue chip interior lineman coming out of Lexington, Kentucky, getting offers from around the country, including Ohio State and Oregon, but he elected to stay home in Kentucky. Takes a red shirt in his first year. And in 2022, his redshirt freshman year, he starts all 13 games at left guard. It was pretty good, let's say, but kind of precipitated to 2023 and said, well, let's go ahead and try him at center, which is where they started working him. Got some snaps there early, but developed a center snap problem. So they ended up moving him back to guard and kind of finished out the season at right guard, getting some starts there also. 2024, they move him or they keep him at guard, starts 10 games then there. And in 2025, they move him back to center. And he had a really, really good, kind of all came together for him. And he was able to stay at center, played pretty well there for Kentucky. So all told, between his center and guard snaps in his career in Kentucky, he ends up with 46 career starts and over 2,600 snaps played. Reason why I'm thinking he might be the Saints type of guy, look, they talked about some of the favorite topic conversations for Kellen Moore about college players. Guys that overcome adversity, that are able to adjust, that work hard and get better and kind of show up that final year and go, hey, look, I've got this figured out and I can do it. So Burton kind of displays that. Thing with him is he was, and I think largely because he 4+ years of college and really only one true, really kind of breakout year, people talk about that, was on nobody's radar. It was undrafted free agent. area until he showed up in the Shrine Bowl last week. And he was another one that started working on that offensive line with NFL scouts and coaches around and going, holy crap, this kid might be able to play on the next level, generate a lot of buzz. He's kind of a guy that's been moving up everybody's draft charts. I think he's going to have some huge, huge days coming up at the combine and his pro day to lock that in and to going from undrafted to being able to get picked. And looking at his film, you can kind of see where I think it shows up pretty evident where PFF kind of has him. Because they give him a pretty good pass block grade at 79.5, but it lowers under the true set. So he goes from right outside the top 15 percentile, which is a good area to be in for a center, kind of going back down to kind of above average in that true set. One of the reasons is I think a lot of wide zone stuff going on with Kentucky. And so, or RPOs, that sort of thing. And none of that figures into the true set. So do keep that in mind. There is going to be some work to do in pass pro, evidently. Run blocking grade solid, 67.5. In a zone, 65.8. Gap, 66.8. Throws up some pretty good numbers. And this is one of the things that he steadily improved on in his college career. Now, when you kind of look at what the websites, the draft analyst sites are saying about him, does some very good things in his senior year as a center. Kentucky, good at a reach block, combo blocks or duo blocks, and coming off them and getting to the second level, picking up blocks, and especially pulling out of the center position like a guard. So his improvement in run blocking from the center position is probably attributed somewhat to some of the skills he developed in his time as he was working as a guard, because they all emphasize that he is the guy that showed up there, had some struggles trying to move into the center position, stuck it out at guard, finally got better enough or good enough to get back and be the starting center for the whole season. Think that's the kind of thing most people are looking at him, and then he tops it off with that Shrine Bowl appearance. So overall, he's a guy I look at that could fit. Really, the Saints do need to address this. Bring in someone who is a center to see if you can develop, but more importantly, if he's NFL ready. And that's really the question that a lot of NFL people think he answered in the Shrine Bowl, going, he's NFL ready. We can develop him, and in a pinch, he can come in and play center and help us out. Whether we get one in free agency or we draft one. And the thing is, if we draft one, it's going to be a day 3 guy. Someone like Jager Burton shows up on the, I believe, heavily on the Saints' radar in that category, depending on what happens in free agency and definitely depending on what happens in the draft. If not a Jager Burton, then there's a couple other guys who are making the same run that he is from the center position with guard experience in college. Some guys to keep an eye on. So right now, the consensus seems to be the Saints are going to solve their interior, especially left guard issue in free agency, which I feel like they're going to try very hard to do, and it makes sense. Problem is, it seems to be a lot of movement coming in the interior line across the NFL, and we're talking left guard, center, and right guard. From the left guard spot, that is probably going to drive the price up. Edwards from Buffalo, and they're also looking like they're going to lose their center. So that's probably going to drive his price up. And when you start looking through the rest of the guys that play left guard, we've talked about this in earlier videos, older guys that likely you're going to get on a 1-year deal. And when I mean older, I mean in the position of like Cam Jordan and Demario Davis are for us right now. Do they want to come back for a 1-year deal? How much money is it looking like? Do they want to test free agency, or are they even thinking about retiring? The next group, and Dylan Radins falls in here, who was our primary left guard, as it turns out, last year. I don't want to say question marks in Radins' case, but you know what you're going to get, but it's not likely going to be any better than what you saw, I guess is the best way to put it. But opposite of that is there are some guys with potential to be very good left guards, And I say potential because they're drawing some injury baggage with them, and you're not quite sure. In some cases, you're not quite sure if they're even going to play this year or be able to start this year at the beginning of the season. So just a ton of question marks there. So how free agency shakes out at for us, especially in dealing with the interior and left guard spot, definitely drives what's going to happen in the draft. Second part of this is if you don't get a left guard in free agency, and you're looking at the number 8 pick, like I said, it'd be hard to pull a trigger on Ioane unless like Quentin Nelson is the name I reference because the guy's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Yeah, but that's hard to peg. But when you look at who's in the draft, my opinion, and a lot of other people share this opinion, you have two generational players sitting there. One on offense, Jeremiah Love, who absolutely we should take at 8 if he's there. The other is Caleb Downs, who, if he's there, absolutely we should take him if Love's gone. And I still think both of those guys have a very good chance of being gone before they get to 8 because, quite frankly, nobody else in the draft, I don't think, compares to them. Now, some of the other names that are close to me are Bain on the defensive side and Tate on the offensive side. And you still can't give up on Dyson or Makai Lemon at the receiver position, a couple of offensive tackles floating around. That's where it starts getting a little hazy. Add into the fact about the next part I'm about ready to say. Let's have a conversation about what Mickey Loomis also said in the McShay interview. And I didn't even know this, so it's always nice to get fresh knowledge. Most NFL teams go in with about 400 names into the draft when there's 270 some odd names that are going to be drafted. The Saints come in with a draft board of players they really want that they are targeting for whatever reason. Typically, it's less than the number of draft picks that are going to be in that draft. And Loomis even says there are times when in the draft, all of a sudden our draft board is running thin and there's only a couple of names left. Sometimes they've been able to take them because they stayed. Other times, and he said this, he said that's why sometimes we have um, the thought process to trade up more than we ever do trading down, which kind of answers a question I've always asked about why do we do that? Well, that's their process. That's the way they do it. Because at 8, ideally, I would like to trade down. Again, if INA is answering the questions we want answered, and even if they don't, I think he's still worth a shot moving back down about 10 spots and grabbing him and picking up some draft capital. But at the same time, like we said, there's some names there that if they're there, I feel like you can't do that for sure. My top 2 guys. And on top of that, that's just not something the Saints really do. Now, Pregnon and a few other guys have really started moving up the board. Pregnon may slip into the first. Here's where the trade up thing comes in. I say slip into the first, climb into the first. Is there the potential that, and like I said, this will probably be the next video, we'll focus on him. Could this be the potential play? Like we did with Ramczyk. Let's try to get this guy, even though a lot of people projected him at the very top of the second, let's try to make sure we get him and get him on a rookie deal with 5th-year option by moving up. That's in Mickey's wheelhouse. If we miss a left guard, depending on the feeling on Ioane and the draft board and everything else that goes into it, and maybe this will be the year they want to trade down a little bit. But if none of that happens, I would say trading up could be a possibility here. But regardless, right now, to me, that left guard is the priority on this offense. This priority on the team. You got to solve that problem. If you do it in free agency, it makes a lot of these decisions in the draft a lot easier. But if you don't, you're going to have to figure this one out and figure it out pretty quick. That being said, I think we're okay. One way or the other, we will upgrade at that spot. And at the very least, there's a good possibility Radens comes back if it comes down to it. He's going to draw interest from other teams, but I think that's a very big product of the movement in the market and just especially on that left side. Just a lot of question marks around a lot of the guys that considered the top guys. We'll just have to see how it all plays out. And we'll reiterate, just to wrap it up on Burton or anybody else like him that on that day 3 side shows considerable amount of playing time in college, the improvement, the ability to come in and not only be a developmental piece that, hey, maybe one day he is our starting center or maybe he's not, but at the very least, hey, he can come in and play. And in the back pocket, in a real pinch, he has the ability to play some guard because he's done that too in his career and he understands it. So interior of the line, very, very important. Something they have to address. And part of that will have to be addressed in the draft one way or the other. So big question. Let me know down in the comments from you guys and gals it is number 8 off limits for a guard no matter what? Can Ione do something to say, hey, yeah, you take him at 8? Or if you're really, and I'm one of the people, I really, really want this young man. But if you're one of the people who want him is hey, let's work that trade down situation, get the right value for him, and pick up a little bit something else for further on in the draft or even in next year's draft. So let me know what you think down there. First time here, you like what you saw, please like, share, subscribe, all that great stuff. Pregnon, pretty sure is going to be in the next video, and we'll probably be looking around for another one of those day 3 kind of help guys. So expecting that Monday or Tuesday. Hopefully, I'll stay on schedule. And until I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.